Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello to everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, both attending there is online, yeah. And both attending here and virtually welcome to the side event at the COP28 Indonesian Pavilion. Now the session we name is Policy Approaches for Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. This session with co-host by the Coordinating Minister of Economics, of Economic Affairs, and the Global Green Growth Institute through the Designing Article 6 Policy Approaching Program. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm the Agus Pambagio. I'm the Senior Advisor for the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. Now I'll be chair for the meeting. Is about an hour and 20 minutes, including the discussion. So before we starting this session, please allow me to extend the warmest welcome to invite our speaker to the stage. But before that, I would ask Pak Dida. He's the, He's the Deputy Minister for Food and Agri-Business Cooperation of the Coordinating Ministry for Economic to give the keynote speech. And then after that, we can follow with the discussion. Pak Dida, you can hear.
Thank you, Pak Agus. He is my senior. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everybody, excellencies. First of all, I would like to convey apology from the Vice Minister, Pak Aludohong, because at the same time he has other duty that cannot be left. Distinguished participants, particularly Pak Agus Yustianto, the DG of Ministry of Environment and Forestry, and other participants, distinguished speakers, Bapak Kus Prisetia Hadi, Assistant Deputy Minister for Climate Change and Disaster Management of the Coordinating Ministry for Maritime Affairs and Investment, Ibu Venela Awan, Director and Head of Carbon Pricing of the Global Green Growth Institute, Ibu Kamia Handayani, Executive Vice President for Energy Transition and Sustainability of the National Electricity Company, or PLN. She is also my junior, but more clever than me. And also would like to welcome distinguished guests here and virtually who are participating in this side event at the COP28 Indonesia Pavilion. I believe that this side event fits perfectly with one of the agenda of COP this year, which is fast-tracking energy transitions and slashing emission before 2030. As everyone here is aware, this is much needed but requires more than $1 trillion of investment. This investment gap cannot be filled by the state budget alone, but requires other financing sources. Under the Paris Agreement regime, parties have agreed to a mechanism called Article 6, which enable parties to participate in cooperative approach to achieve their nationally determined contributions, or NDCs. This mechanism enables parties to conduct in transaction of mitigation outcomes through different methods of collaborations. One of the modalities of Article 6 is Article 6.2, an instrument that enables parties to bilaterally conduct a transaction of mitigation outcomes in the form of internationally transfer mitigation outcomes, or ITMOs. The host country or the seller may sell said ITMOs to potential buyers country in exchange for carbon financing. Such financing could then be utilized to invest in mitigation activities. For example, that the development of renewable energy sources to further curtail emissions. Indonesia is one of several countries in the world that is preparing its readiness to participate in such endeavor. In 2021, the Government of Indonesia issued Presidential Regulation number 98 on the carbon economic value, which serve as the legal umbrella for all carbon pricing efforts in the country. Last year, the Ministry of Environment and Forestry also issued Ministerial Regulation number 21, 2022 for further detail of the implementation of carbon pricing in Indonesia. Additionally, the Ministry is currently developing other modalities to support both domestic and international carbon trade, also together with other line ministries, including Coordinating Ministry for Maritime and Investment. This was then followed by the regulatory products for the power generation subsector under the energy sector, enabling the commencement of the emission trading system for coal-fired power plants and for the forestry sector. On the sectoral level, relevant technical ministries are also mandated to develop sectoral carbon trade roadmaps, key documents that will provide the overall strategies for sector mentioned in our current enhanced NDC. Apart from the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, effort to enhance the readiness of the Government of Indonesia have also been initiated by many line ministries, including Coordinating Ministry for Economic Affairs. Since 2009, the ministry has been enhancing its understanding of international carbon trade through Article 6.2. Through an inter-ministerial advisory committee, we have invited other relevant technical ministries to identify potential intervention that could be eligible for Article 6.2. One interesting aspect of this has been the focus of policy-based approach, where individual projects under a certain policy are bundled together to generate significant amounts of mitigation outcomes. We express its preference to move ahead with the solar PV policy approach, which was narrowed down to floating solar PVs. This is considering the fact that Indonesia currently manage numerous dams which are now enabled to host floating solar PVs up to, or not up to, at least 20% of the surface area. This greatly increased the opportunity for developing renewable energy to meet national targets and hasten energy transition efforts. We have already started the floating solar PV in Cirata dams, so I think we have already break the egg, so hopefully the rest can be accelerated. Preliminary assessment suggests that mitigation outcomes from floating solar PV establishment could be eligible for international carbon trade through Article 6 mechanism. Carbon financing through this mechanism could provide the right incentive for developer, both public and private ones, and also to community to participate and spur massive development of floating solar PVs. The Coordinating Ministry for Economic Affairs, in collaboration with Global Green Growth Institute, aims to facilitate the securing of transactions of ITMOs generated from floating solar PV deployment with potential buyers. Hopefully next year, our country's partner, such as Norway, already give their interest to collaborate with us, and we both parties agreed that these transactions will will contribute to each country NDCs. If this is realized, it may become the first policy level Article 6.2 transactions conducted by the Government of Indonesia. Following that, our partner countries, particularly in ASEAN countries, already have contract with some developed countries. I believe that this session could provide more insight into what the government is currently undertaking in relation to Article 6.2 Paris Agreement. I do hope that the presentation and discussion could spark the interest of both public and private players and galvanize more participation in the country. With that, I officially open the session and ask you to actively engage in the discussion session. Thank you. I wish you a fruitful discussion ahead. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, let's continue before starting the discussion. I invited, before some, please allow me to extend and warmest welcome to invite our speakers to the stage. The Honorable Pak Dida is already here. Pak Kus Prasetya Hadi, he's the Assistant Deputy Minister for Climate Change and Disaster Management of the Coordinating Ministry for Maritime Affairs and Investment. Second one is Ibu Vanilla Awans, Director of Hair and Carbon Pricing of the Global Green Growth Institute. And the last but not least, Ibu Kamia Handayani, the Executive Vice President, Energy Transition and Sustainability to the National Electricity Company, or PLN. So before we start, can we take a group photo, Pak? So. So it's time now. So we still have exactly an hour, but we have 4 speakers here. So I have to limit time for everybody. It's 12 minutes. All right. It's only I should stop because the lot of other session will come in. So for the first time, I invite who's gonna be? Oh, now I've invited Pak. There's too many notes here. I invite Pak Kus Prasetya Hadi first, the Assistant Deputy Minister for Food and Minister of Climate Change and Disaster Management from the Coordinating Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Investment. Pak Kus, 12 minutes, the floor is yours. You can sit down over here or you can sit here.
Thank you, Bapak Moderator, as well. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to present on the Article 6 and how it applies in Indonesia. It is a challenge for Indonesia how to apply the Article 6, especially 6.2. Thanks for the collaboration between Indonesia and other NGOs, international NGOs like TGI. In here, I would like to stress one thing that for Indonesia to apply Article 6.2, especially for international carbon trading, we have a challenging on how we can apply the authorization and without authorization. So in Indonesian terminology that authorizations refer to authorization mean permit from the government through the corresponding adjustment of existence. However, we have another terminology that authorization without corresponding adjustment. So it is a new thing for Indonesia. So I think Vanella can explain this challenge, because we would like to convince that Indonesia has in the right track, and in terms of greenwashing and then integrity and something like that. In here, I have a slide that, sorry. We have already increasing the NDC targets. I think we have already known about this. And as well for the second NDC, we add ocean for new targets, especially for blue carbon, because blue carbon is very important for Indonesia as natural-based solutions. We have had about 15% from the potential in the global. Next, please. It is just to illustrate what I have already mentioned, that we have 15% of the potential of the NBS, similar with Brazil. Next, please. This is the good point that why we have to go for voluntary carbon markets, because until about 2030, where every country needs carbon to meet their NDC, the voluntary carbon market will be increasing about 29%. After that, there is plateauing until 2050, whereas the compliance will be dominant compared to voluntary carbon markets. So it is a new chance, it is a good chance for Indonesia to regulate the VCM in our regulations. But as I mentioned in the beginning, that there is a challenge as well for Indonesia how to apply this VCM within the integrity and under the government control. Next, please. This is just the illustration of the PCM market is higher than that is a non-market mechanism. Next. Also in here that the carbon market create a new an investment ecosystem of mitigation activities to help Indonesia meet NDC targets. So we need carbon pricing to fund our financial gap on climate action. So it mentioned by the Europeans that up to their experience within 2 decades that carbon pricing contributes about 40% to decrease the emission. So it is very important why we have to develop the carbon pricing. Next, please. This is the Article 6.2 and 6.4 and 6.8. I will not further explanation on this. I think other speakers will talk about. Next, please. This is we describe this with our teams. So perhaps there is input from speakers and audience whether our illustration is meet with the Article 6.2 and 6.4 mechanism under the Paris Agreement. We are now not conflicting, but challenged on how the voluntary commitment under the international carbon trading and then domestic scheme can be applied. So actually, without the voluntary carbon market, we worry that the transaction of carbon trading in Indonesia will not so enthusiastic. So we have to think about how to make the carbon exchange in Indonesia can be more live. Next, please. also, I think this very narrative, and we can pass next, please. In here, I would like to illustrate what the development of the carbon pricing in Indonesia. We have already had the presidential decree. We have already had the ministerial decree, as well the steering committee for the implementation of carbon pricing. We have already had the ministerial decree on carbon economic value, as well carbon economic value on forest sector. We have had the power plant subsector of carbon pricing. And the last, we have already launching the carbon exchange. Next. I think for Indonesia, we have very complete and we are ready for carbon trading. But the last is we just try to finalize the carbon trading on international. This is the illustration how carbon pricing in market-based mechanism and non-market-based mechanism. I think one thing that I would like to stress in here that there is carbon tax. When cap and trade has been applied, and then they don't meet the need of one company or one entity, let's say, in regard to the need of carbon offsetting. So the government will apply carbon tax. So it is very challenging for Indonesia, and then the regulation of the carbon tax itself has been developing. We need to finalize for these purposes. Next, please. This is the carbon market ecosystem. I think KLHK will explain in more detail on this, should be. Next. In here, carbon implementation performance, that's what I mentioned, that we have to, how to make our carbon exchange more transactions and more companies will get into as well the other sectors, how we can develop and encourage the other sector as well can be developed with each sector, and then they among sector can be trading. Next. This is our president has launched the carbon exchange, and then under this carbon exchange, we noticed that, especially number 2, we have to make international carbon standard as a reference. It is very stressful by our president. Next. Okay. This is the launching of the launching of ETS of carbon trading in in 2020 February 2023. Okay, next please. This is the needs for the near future. If I cannot say tomorrow, but we have to develop this arrangement for the implementation of carbon pricing. We need the roadmap of transportation sector, and then agriculture sector, industrial sector, and then waste, oil and gas sector. Because under up to our analysis, that the sector has the development of the roadmap. So under our office, we will facilitate this sector to develop the roadmap. I think we can hand in hand with KLHK to provide and facilitate this sector to develop the carbon trading roadmap. And then also institutional setting on carbon pricing implementation, we need to develop as well. And then international carbon trading, as I mentioned in advance that we have a challenge to how to apply the authorization and authorization without corresponding adjustment. Next, please. I think that's all we would like to explain to you all. One thing I would like to raise in here that to develop the international carbon market, there is what we call under our presidential decree mutual recognition. I think through this mutual recognition, we can develop and we make easy among producer of carbon, let's say FERA, Gold Standard, and others, how can incorporate it into our SRN easily. It is through the MRA, mutual recognition. I think any of our partners can help and facilitate our nation to do so. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Pak Kus Prasetya Hadi. Thank you for the insightful presentation. I'm eager to see how carbon financing and complement both public and private investment to deliver large emission reduction to support us in achieving our long-term net zero target. Now for the second speakers, we shall then move to the Ibu Fenela Aukwan is going to be said. I'm sorry, was the Director and Head of Carbon Pricing of the Global Green Growth Institute. GGGI has been facilitating the Government of Indonesia in preparing for bilateral carbon transaction by focusing on formulating policy-level intervention related to the floating solar PVs. So, Bu Fenela, you have 12 minutes. But I have to announce, Pak Dida has to go to the airport, just get up the plane. So after that, anytime Pak Dida can leave this one. I'm sorry, I apologize for this thing because this is he has an important meeting tomorrow morning. Okay, let's please.
Thank you very, very much. And thank you, Pak Dida and the Government of Indonesia for welcoming GGGI and allowing us to share some of the work we've been doing with you in the country. I think, first of all, I have to say, this is the first time that Pak Dida and I have managed to make COP at the same time. Nearly always, Pak Dida does the first week, disappears, and I do the second week. So one of us is always online. So I will say you're completely forgiven for going to the airport when you need to. At least we managed to be here both in person. Yes. So I do take it as a great sign. The next thing I must say before I start is I must congratulate the Government of Indonesia on how far and how advanced the country is in carbon pricing already. You have presidential decrees, you have regulations in place, you are looking at a national ETS scheme, you have an offset scheme, you have an exchange. That is so much further than many countries have been able to achieve so far. So it's a fantastic achievement. I think there are only a few more pieces of the puzzle to add, and then it's just how to coordinate. So if you've done so much, what am I here for? Why am I here? You've done it all. What is the purpose of the work that we're doing? So before I explain it and show a few complex slides with lots of acronyms in, and everybody goes, oh, I'm a bit lost now. And I'm sorry, I can't do it in Bahasa either for the Indonesian audience, I apologize. We need to understand what's the purpose. And I'll explain it in very, very simple terms. So the work we do is on international carbon pricing aligned with Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, with or without corresponding adjustments. Now that, to some people, may be seen as compliance or voluntary market. I tend to see the line as a bit fuzzy nowadays, so I just say with or without corresponding adjustments. The purpose is very clear. You look at your Indonesian carbon exchange at the moment, and I think if I got it right, the flash on the screen was 52,000 rupee was the price last traded. Okay, so that's about $3. Okay, which is very common and in the market, forestry credit, local, voluntary offset. The market we're dealing in, the Article 6 market, prices that are trading and it's public knowledge. I'm going to have to shout. If anyone can pop next door and ask them just to keep it down a bit while we finish the presentation. The reason is, and it's public knowledge, the Swiss government are trading ITMOs, which are the unit traded for the compliance Article 6 markets, at more like $23. So what we're talking about here is you're adding another market because it has a different pricing. And you want that different pricing because you want carbon finance to be coming into Indonesia. And why do you want that? There's plenty of funding available for Indonesia. Generally climate finance. And if we look at the ministry, the coordinating Ministry of Maritime and Investment, who run the JETP program on behalf of the country, the knowledge there of the JETP money being offered, but then Indonesia's saying, but it's all loans. Where's the grant? Where's the money for this? That's the difference. So carbon pricing and carbon trading is not climate finance. It's not a loan. It's a commodity trade. So you're selling the right to emit to another country in exchange for money, and it's paid on delivery. Now, we want that because we want to complement the climate finance. So you want to have both, and you want to make sure that you don't have a heavy debt burden. So that's why I'm standing here, and that's what I'm going to explain what we're doing and how we're doing it briefly. Now then, hold on, that way. There we go. So just the benefits, a particular area of Article 6, you can do a trade where you take one project, a floating solar project in one of the many thousands of islands in Indonesia, in one discrete area, and you trade the emissions reduced by the generation of that. That's project-based. What we're looking at and what we've been talking to Indonesia about is national policy, where the policy allows for and helps to develop and coordinates with all the parties, including the grid operator and others, for a coherent, coordinated effort to allow 1,000 floating solar projects to happen and to receive funding because they're more expensive than fossil fuel or other types of renewable. The program's called Designing Article 6 in Policy Approaches, or DAPA, as we call it. And I'll give in the last example, I'll show you the Carbon Transaction Facility, which is a new item from GGGI. So just quickly, why look at a policy approach? Why look at one of these national policies and try and see how we change the national position? So we're talking about scaled up here. Remember, the point of carbon trading and what you have to prove if you're going under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement is that what you're doing is additional to business as usual. And it's going to create transformational change. So it's really going to create a benefit for the country. That's what we feel a policy approach would do. It also, of course, the sustainable development aspects are required, necessary, and can be built into the policy. So as I say, transformational change, It allows multiple stakeholders. So this is where the funding that is generated through the carbon trade doesn't necessarily all go to the floating solar operator, because PLN has to work out how are they going to accommodate the power in the grid. What is the cost and the impact of that? So we need to bring them into the transaction through a centralized financing facility. So it includes multiple state and non-state actors. And then once we've set the system up, it kind of can keep going much, much more easily. So each extra floating solar program and project that starts, it's cheaper to join because the infrastructure is already there. And then really importantly for us, as GGGI works embedded within the government, is it's controlled, owned, operated by the government. We're there to help educate, to help show how it can be set up, but it has strong government ownership. So what are we doing at GGGI and what's the DAPA program in Indonesia? So we're currently working with the Norwegian Ministry of Climate and Environment. We're looking to trade ITMOs, so that's the internationally transferred mitigation outcomes with corresponding adjustments, focused on renewable energy deployment. And we're looking at what is the policy, so we're helping to look and think and shape the policy approach. Then we look at the MRV. How are we going to measure it? How are we going to look at the monitoring and reporting? We help within the government how to set that up. So that's with, we're looking to, in the future when ready, to work with the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, and also have been working with CMEA and others through the TAC committee. Then we have a lot of training for stakeholders. The engagement of buyer and seller countries, we work with both, and then recommendations and around where we help facilitate the transaction. But the transaction is done country to country. So we're looking around transformational change. It's additional to the country commitments under NDC. It's very importantly aligned with all the national policies and the regulations put in place, and conservative and robust baselines. So what have we done so far? We have a letter of interest. We've set up a steering committee, the TAC committee, which is chaired by Pat Dida here. We have we've done an initial assessment of potential policies, a heat map. We've looked at particular policy approach proposals through technical studies. We've done financial flow studies. We've looked at the types of agreements that would be there. And then we're now, the committee, so not GGGI, but the committee, which is made up of multiple ministries, has selected potentially a floating solar policy in Indonesia. I think last, so that's in a nutshell what the policy is and how we're working with the government. And we hope that floating solar may be something that can touch as well and help promote the JET-P and help move Indonesia to renewable energy, especially in places where it is harder for the grid to be able to do that switch. So the last thing I'm going to just show is the carbon transaction facility. And this is a new facility within GGGI. And what we're hoping to do here is, beyond this first transaction under DAPA and a policy approach, future trades, all our member countries, which includes Indonesia, will be able to get access to multiple buyers under Article 6. So here we have a readiness facility, which will be a multi-donor readiness facility that can help on identifying further projects that could be eligible for Article 6 from Indonesia. And then we have a number of single donor trust funds. These will be buying funds under Article 6. So the idea is that if we find, identify, and the government is happy to authorize projects under Article 6 in Indonesia, then they will be able to access multiple buyers in one go to be able to attain the best price possible. I shall stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, excellent, for exciting presentation. Policy level mitigation action is indeed a novel approach, maybe not just Indonesian but also the world. Now, Pak Dida, before I start to Ibu Kamia, Pak Dida juga, well, Kamia, okay, thank you for the patience. So the plane won't leave you. So, yeah. So Bu Kamia, would like to invite, this is his last speaker, but not least, yeah, Executive Vice President for Energy Transition and Sustainability of the National Electricity Company or PLN. Bukannya? Yeah. 12 minutes. Well, more than 1 or 2 minutes is okay.
Okay. Thank you so much, Pak Agus, and thank you, Pak Dida, for having me and for staying for my talk. So I have been learning and getting insight from Pak Dida speech and also from Pak Agus and Ibu Vanella. So I'm going to talk about what happens in PLN and also what is the progress in terms of carbon pricing, and also I would like to touch also on the floating solar PV, which was also discussed earlier by Ibu Vanella. So this is on NDC. Indonesia has committed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. I think everybody already know, and I would like to highlight that 40% of the 915 million tons of emission reductions of Indonesia's NDC is actually targeting from the energy sector. So we view that carbon market becomes an important part in ensuring country and global emission reductions. First of all, it could, in our perspective as a project developer and as a company, we need carbon finance to make our project more financially or commercially feasible. For example, yesterday actually our CEO was in the main stage of the COP event by the invitation of the COP28 presidency, and he was talking about the transition credits, how carbon credits can also support the early retirement of coal power plant. So as the owner of asset, we need not only climate finance, but also carbon credit is part of the additional finance that can also help to make emission reductions more commercially feasible. And also, we have seen the carbon market development has exercised the price evolution. So based on that, as a company, we can also see from the historical price of the carbon market and see how we can include this carbon pricing in our investment decision. So whether it is in terms of how much we should pay or we should pay in the future for the emission that we produce, and also how much we can receive from the market, from the emission reductions that we generate. So this is something that we can use in our internal decision making on to ensure our business sustainability. And also carbon credits can also help us in enabling innovation in terms of technology. For example, some technology that currently is still very expensive, like carbon capture and storage. At this moment, the price for capture itself is still around $50 per ton of CO2 being abated, 50 to 80 US dollar per ton. So it is not commercially feasible at this time. But once the carbon market, the carbon credit can reach that level, of course, this technology is something that we can use as a choice for reducing emissions at a huge number. PLN supporting carbon market and also renewable energy procurement in Indonesia. So why we not only talking about the carbon credit, but we also talk about the renewable energy procurement, because there are two green attributes that is currently implemented in PLN. The first one is carbon credit, and we also have this renewable energy certificate. This is also a market-based mechanism that is really getting many demand from our customer. So then now we have to choose for a project whether we are going to proceed with carbon credit or with renewable energy certificate, because we should see the market or the demand from our customer. There are many our customer currently, especially the member of RE100, they are requesting REC, and the price at this moment is also. Selamat jalan Pak Dida. So the price of the REC is quite stable, and depending on the project, it is also, for example, for the case of solar PV, the price is around $5 per megawatt hour, which is higher than if we convert it in ton of CO2, it is higher than the price of the one that we see from the Indonesia Carbon Exchange. So PLN itself already developed carbon credits actually since probably 2010, where we have our first carbon credit project registered under CDM, the Lahendong geothermal power plant in 2010. And since then, we have issued around 9 million tons of carbon credits, both from the CDM mechanism and also from the voluntary mechanism. We registered also under the VERA standard. And in terms of REC, this is only issued since 2020, but it has been very accepted by the market. So we already issued around 6.4 terawatt hours. So if you look at the unit, it's different with carbon credit. Carbon credit is in ton of CO2 reductions, but for the REC, it's in terawatt hour of energy from renewable energy. So, and we have sold around 75% out of the 6.4 terawatt hour that has been issued. And also, as mentioned by Pak Kus, in February 2023, there was a launch of the emission trading system in the power sector, and PLN has been, previously in 2021, we were piloting this ETS project in 26 power plant, and in 2023, now we have implemented in 55 units of coal-fired power plant. So going forward, PLN has developed the accelerated renewable energy development scenario, where we will increase our renewable capacity to up to 61 gigawatt by 2040. So it means much higher than the one that we have planned in our RUPTL. In our RUPTL, until 2030, we plan for 20.9 gigawatt of renewable energy, which is actually part of Indonesian NDC. And then now we are in the process of updating our RUPTL, and by 2040, we will add more renewable. It means that it also requires a high capex. We have calculated the capex in total of 157 billions of US dollar, not only for the additional renewables, but also for the green enabling transmission line, which will evacuate all the green energy into the epicentrum of demand. And also for the smart grid, I think Bu Fenella mentions about how the grid can also accommodate the variability of a solar PV or wind, and we have to advance or to modernize our grid to be able to adopt a right scale of variable renewable energy into our system. So PLN participated in both primary and also secondary market. We have done direct carbon trading between the coal-fired power plant and also between our own facilities, also with the private sector facilities. Through, we have this platform, so-called PLN Climate Click and Applegatric. Applegatric is the platform that provided by the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, and PLN Climatic is our own platform. For one of the function of this platform is actually to enable trading of carbon credits between power plants. But we also have participated in the Indonesian Carbon Exchange. We actually has registered the largest SPE or emission reduction certificate. Nearly 1 million tons of SPE has been issued under the SRN registry or the System Registry Nasional. And I would also like to highlight, because I think in this session we mentioned a lot on the floating solar PV, so I would also like to highlight how this is something that is an innovation in Indonesia, because this is the largest floating solar PV not only in Indonesia but also in Southeast Asia and the second largest in the world. So this is something that we can be proud of. And under pipeline, we still under pipeline right now we still have other solar PV that is under procurement process, Singkarak and also Saguling. And if you look at the RUPTL, we also have another around 600 megawatt of floating solar PV that will be developed until 2030. Of course, it is not only reduce GHG emission, but also contributed to other sustainable development goals, like how also create jobs to the local people. So as a key takeaway in this session, I would like to highlight that I think it has been explained before about the international market under the Article 6. So we have to define more clarity on how renewable-based carbon credits will be treated internationally, because, for example, now we have the, Indonesia cannot enter the gold standard or FERA standard anymore, because we are not low-income country, so we cannot register our project in this standard, our renewable energy connected project in this standard. So probably this is something that we can look again, because in the future, we still need to put so much capex in this development of renewable energy, and we also need capex. We need also capex for as the replacement of retirement of coal power plant, but we cannot register it under gold standard or FERA standard, because we are no longer they're no longer accepting renewable energy connected to grid project from Indonesia. So this is something that I think we need to discuss. And then, of course, capability building for Indonesia in terms of how the progress in international market. Like we also appreciate what has been done by GGI and Ministry of Economic Affairs, that we were participated in a training that was conducted in August 2023 on this issue, and we still need more capability building on these matters. And then we need to operationalize Indonesia's carbon credits in the international market, also through connecting, for example, Indonesia Carbon Exchange with other global platforms, and also explore the potential of linkage between Indonesia's ETS. So I think this is, of course, this is need process that probably what is currently doing by GGI and Ministry of Economic Affairs could also facilitate this process. This is my last slides, and I look forward to the discussions afterwards. Thank you, Pak Agus.
Very insightful. The large investment gap for PLN to shift the renewable energy, including solar PVs, is definitely a huge challenge that PLN needs to overcome. So we still have time. So before I leave this to the audience, I have a small question to three of the speakers. That's very simple and also short. Probably, first of all, to Pak Kus. Pak, the energy sector is probably the sector with the highest investment cost. Apart from the energy sector, which sector do you think requires more investment, particularly through carbon financing, to accelerate effort in achieving our climate goals? Okay, and then you can respond one by one. I read the question first, and then to Ibu Vanilla, how do you see the prospect of Article 6 protocols, primarily to the corresponding adjustment rules, being applied to VCM project? Some in Indonesia see this as a potentially slowing down and limiting private sector investment, as they prefer to apply the prevailing mechanism in the VCM. What is your view on this? And for Bu Kamia, apart from the Cirata and the plant Singkarak and Saguling floating solar PVs, how many more sites are in the pipeline? After Pak Dida, Bu Yuli will represent Pak Dida if there is any question when Pak Dida give a speech earlier. So I'll let Pak Kus first and then all the speakers.
Thank you, Pak Agus, for the question. Energy sector is the second largest emission after emission target under NDC after follow sectors. We have already developed the comprehensive implementation plan under GTP. It will be supported by GTP about 20 billion US dollar. So it is a huge amount of money. And then lastly, I saw from Bu Kamia presentation that for PLN itself, it is needed about 157 billion US dollar. So I cannot imagine how much this amount of money, even though for JETP, under JETP itself, 20 billions. 20 billion is huge, but 157 billions is more and more very big money. So for Indonesia, it is very challenge to funding the renewable energy sector. Even though we have a huge potential of renewable energy, more than 3,000 gigawatts, I think. But how to invite the investor to provide 157 billion US dollar? You can see through the JTP itself about 20 billion US dollar, but none of the money comes yet. So Bu Kamia can add whether I am true or not that the money not come to our national budget for developing this energy sector. Thank you, Pak.
Thank you. Hopefully, we just hope the monies come to Indonesia, right? But I think it's more difficult for this. Bu Fania.
Thank you very much. Okay, so my question was, what do I think about, do I think that voluntary carbon markets are going to start aligning with Article 6, and that some actors in the voluntary market may resist that because they prefer the current route? And what's my view? Again, I'll answer by saying it's all to do with price. If you need 157 billion for your energy transition in Indonesia, you need the highest price possible for every single ton of carbon that you sell. So therefore, you need to make that ton of carbon the best gold-plated, diamond-encrusted, on a platform, on a pedestal, shiny, bright, and well-dressed, in order to attract the highest prices. So how do you do that? You make sure that your credits and your activities are aligned with the highest standards. What's the highest standard at the moment? Aligning with Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, because that's what the parties have agreed is the highest standard. So if you align, and just say you are creating, it's additional, it's permanent, it has sustainable development co-benefits to it, it is a strong, and it's not double counted. Now that I'll come back to. So that's the standard. Now, how do you ensure that? And that's where currently it's really difficult for the government of Indonesia to ensure that on every carbon trade, because the voluntary market doesn't require to touch on anything with the government. So it's a private sector to private sector transaction. So it's Indonesia's choice. It's not inevitable, but it is Indonesia's choice as to whether they want to say, okay, we actually want some level of oversight over all transactions. And from what we understand from the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, that is what the country wants to do. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily control. That just means we want to ensure that the highest standards have been set. And keep an eye on what is going out of the country and where it's going. It's not necessarily to say we own it, we're taking the funding, we're keeping it. No, you want a vibrant private sector, and Indonesia has shown that by having a carbon exchange. So I think it will align. I do think the markets will come together. There will be a market with corresponding adjustments and a market without corresponding adjustments, which is fine. But I do think the standards will align because that's what will attract the best prices. And the government, importantly, by keeping an eye on and maintaining standards, they can also protect reputation. Because I can tell you now, 2 bad deals going out of the country, and buyers will become very wary, and it will immediately lower the price for all carbon trading from Indonesia. So robust governance is needed, and I think the country is showing that well. Thanks.
Excellent, interesting. Thank you, Ibu Vanella. Now, Bu Kamia.
If I may, Pak Agus, because I think in my last slide, I also have a questions on the how can we also enter the international carbon market if we are not eligible anymore? Because I think it's still connect with what Ibu Vanella just said. So if Ibu Vanella can maybe address this, because solar PV, floating solar PV will also connect it to the grid. So it means that it cannot register under FERA or gold standard. If you have some, sorry for asking, and then I will continue.
It's okay. Should be clear for the audience.
Sure. Okay, so yes, if you're not a least developed country, large-scale renewable energy at the moment is not eligible with gold standard or Vera. However, that's standard. I think there are routes to look around that and say, well, hold on, it's floating solar is very different as the technology to a standard solar PV plant. So I think if there are aspects to these, and I don't know, I'll have to speak to Hugh from the gold standard and see where they're going on that. Also, policy approaches is, again, a different aspect. There's also, don't forget, 6.2, you don't have to register with a standard. You trade bilaterally. So as long as the buyer and the seller believe that it's following the spirit of high integrity and following the rules, they don't actually have to physically register. So I think there's absolutely channels open, but not for renewable energy that is standard, that is bankable, that is commercially viable. It has to be proved it's additional. And I think there are plenty of instances of that in Indonesia.
Okay, thank you. It's very clear and clean.
Thank you. It's relieving.
Okay.
Okay, so coming to the questions from Pak Agus regarding the another potential for the floating solar PV. If I look at the data from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, actually there are a potential of around 28 gigawatt of floating solar PV from the existing dams that exist in Indonesia. But not all the dams are used for power plants or hydropower plants. So there are also dams for agriculture. I think when we combine hydropower plant with floating, it's a good combination because floating solar PV has intermittent characteristic and hydropower plant has flexible generation, so it can accommodate or compensate where there are no sun, for example, because we have existing hydropower plant. And these existing hydropower plants, if we again screen of the 28 gigawatt, there are 4.8 gigawatt capacity, potential capacity of floating solar PV that to be developed in the existing hydropower plant dam. So, but if we look again closer to RUPTL, when in RUPTL we already have like some initial feasibility study on each project, there are around 600 megawatt of potential floating solar PV capacity until 2030. Of course, we are now updating our RUPTL, so it could be more, especially because we already have proof that this is something that can work. So yeah, that's the data that I have at this moment.
Okay, thank you, Bu Kamia. So we have 10 minutes left. Is there any question from the floor? Come on. You already got breakfast anyway. Come on. No question? No, I think. Or is there any additional information that you want to share? Okay, so I think there's no one raised their hand for question. So I think I should close this session. And I would like to say thank you to 4 of the distinguished speakers and also who's attend this meeting this morning. So again, on behalf of the Indonesian Pavilion, I would say thank you to your attention. Thank you.